Hey there, Coach Patrick here, Endurance Nation, with our Roadmap webinar. Today, I'll be talking to you about season planning, a process that we've been doing inside Endurance Nation since 2007, a process we've refined across 10,000 plus athletes. What does all this mean to you? It means that we've gone through a ton of manual work trying to figure out what's the optimal season for athletes. We didn't outsource it to a platform. We haven't outsourced it to technology. It's here inside the head of me, inside the team of our athletes, inside of our community. It's a function of what we do every year to make sure athletes are on the course. Because while it's easy to outsource data, while it's easy to outsource like race selection or technology for communication, planning a season remains inside Endurance Nation more art than science. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that art today and some of the key components you can understand what differentiates Roadmap from other products and why we're actually this year bringing Roadmap outside of Endurance Nation for new members to join. That's right. So you can actually sign up for a Roadmap. When you get a Roadmap, we'll actually go through this process together. More on that in a minute. And you'll actually, at the end of that, have your own roadmap for yourself. And you can use this to put in your own workouts for the key parts of your season. You can use the guidance inside the roadmap to make decisions about how you want to adjust your year, how to stay on track, make sure that you're completely in charge of your program, whether you're working with another coach, or you're using an online platform, or you're doing some hybrid combination of both. Maybe you're reading a book and you're following a book guidance. You can use that as well. But I strongly encourage you to use human input, perhaps someone who's got some experience as human input to the structure of your season, so you end up making best decisions. Because decision making isn't just about reflexes. A lot of times people think like, oh, curveball, I've got to adjust. That's not what season planning is, right? That's reaction time. What we're trying to think about with season planning is positioning. How can I put myself strategically on a chessboard in the right place so that when the time comes, I can make the best possible decisions for race day? So positioning begets better decisions. It's not a function of whatever the best workout is for today, or what's my mood today, or how do I feel? It's more saying within the context of this part of my year, how do I make that decision? To give you a sense of the roadmap and how it works, when you sign up, you'll actually book a call with me and we'll do a review of your season as I've mapped it out. We'll adjust it together. I'll give you context for the reasoning. I'll hear from you and decide what changes I want to make. And then I'll come back to you with a final version. It's yours. You get to continue on your own, or if you want to, apply it to your Endurance Nation experience. 100% up to you. But now you get the access to the same high level, elite level of planning that our Endurance Nation members have had for a long time. Now, the price is deceiving. We've got low prices on all of our stuff, but we take our season planning process very seriously, as you're about to see here. So with that said, let me come on over here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the out season so you have a sense of how things work, okay? Ultimately, this is what I'll be talking about today, which is taking charge of your process, taking charge of everything you need to be successful. Here's what you know by the end. I'm not going to read through it. I'm not the kind of guy who reads through these things, but I do want you to understand that we're very focused on ROI, not just inside Endurance Nation, but even in our educational sessions like this. I want to make sure that you are in charge and understand everything that we're doing and why we're doing it in terms of how it benefits you as the athlete, okay? So very quickly on Endurance Nation, I am chief endorphin consuming officer. So I'm outside every time. Just this past weekend, I went out and did a 9-hour and 42-minute ride because that's the lifestyle that I lead, this lifestyle our members lead. Everything you see inside the team is based on not only science, but also our experience. There's sort of everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, like Mike Tyson said. So too does your season, so too does your data. And while you can look at a chart and say, I'm so fit right now, your body may tell a different story. And the difference between those two is the experience that goes into making our plans and our training plans and our products and our services, our camps, everything that we do for our athletes. They, like me, lead the endurance lifestyle, whether they're doing Ironman triathlons or marathons or ultra running or gravel races, adventure races, you name it, they're out there doing it every weekend. My phone blows up with someone on a new tracker somewhere doing something I can't even quite comprehend. That's Endurance Nation. If you've been an endurance athlete for a while, if you're signed up for races this year, you're a perfect candidate to join the team. If you're ready to take charge of your training and understand that decision-making is a critical skill, it's not just about genetics, it's not just about luck, it's not about your bike budget, it's about what you know, then you are ready to join the team for sure. And we have lots of free resources for you at EnduranceNation.us. Just go there. You'll see a bunch of free places where you can sign up to learn more about the winner, learn more about our habit program, learn more about the out season itself, learn more about our roadmap, all the things that you need. Okay? Very helpful for you. Context for me. Yes, my endurance resume is solid, but more importantly, what I want you to take away from this slide is that I'm like you. I'm a dad. I work full time. I run this business. I'm an endurance athlete. I have other hobbies. I'm an elected official in my town, and I'm super committed like you. And yet I'm still going out there and doing the work. I have the luxury of spending most of my time, well, before I got elected, doing some training and getting ready. But the point remains the same, which is juggling things to make sure we're our best as possible on race day is not easy. Inside Endurance Nation, our program is built around how we structure seasons to make them work for you, the athlete. Understanding that long hours mean time away from family, time away from friends. It means less sleep. It means pressure at work. It means pressure at home. And while endurance and the endurance lifestyle is a fun place to be, there's also many casualties along the way who've made poor decisions. And we're here to make sure that your endurance lifestyle is a sustainable one, where you get to achieve your goals without compromising the lifestyle that you want to lead. Okay. All right. So where does all this come from? Right? What happens? Well, I'll take you back to Ironman Coeur d'Alene, 2007, when we realized, having coached for many, many years, that working with our athletes and transitioning to Endurance Nation, we were having a bit of a problem. We'd moved away from the one-on-one coaching model where we had hands on all of our athletes. We'd stepped out to a group coaching model with 79 super brave souls who joined us way back when the internet was super tiny and small and not full of all these social media apps. We were working with these athletes, but we were doing it in a group setting, which meant that we were giving sort of block schedules and block plans to athletes. We do it very differently today, but the point being that we structured out people's seasons. And when we did that and started to notice multiple different people, different abilities, different parts of the country, different professions, different amounts of time, different levels of commitment, going through the same protocol, we started to notice divergent points, right? Once everyone was normalized to a control, which was the season, we could see where things were going wrong. And it turned out that the athletes who were the most successful on race day were completing a full season. The athletes who were not successful were not completing a full season. They had lots of fits and starts. They wanted to start, something went wrong, they got sick, something came up at work. Life was just crazy. Like life maybe just is crazy. Maybe they can only train 5 hours a week. Maybe they can only train 5 days a week, all different sorts of criteria. So we realized that it wasn't so much about, well, if you can't do 9 months, you can't compete. We realized that we had to structure a season that 95% of athletes could complete. And part of that problem we ran into was this. Athletes have a planning problem. They have a jack-in-the-box season. They pick a race out there in the future, but then they jump into stuff that their friends are doing all the time. They can't differentiate between up and down time. They don't know when they're supposed to be on doing important work and when they're supposed to be off doing recovery and like skill work or something different. Every day is the session. Every day has the Strava segment. Every day has a Zwift race. They're out there competing, and that is to their own detriment. I call that also the misuse of superpowers. It's like using your powers to save the day when really just the dog ate the homework and we could have gotten on a hall pass. Didn't need to like fly around the planet backwards in reverse time. This process of having an up and down season where you're making the mistakes by applying your effort in the wrong areas, this is really disempowering, right? It takes agency away from the athlete. They feel as though their season is not really their own, and they struggle, especially when it comes time for the race that really matters. All of a sudden, they're tired. Maybe they're overtrained. Maybe they've got an injury. Maybe they just haven't put together enough training time because of how things have bounced around, and they really suffer. And it's an unfortunate place to be. So in order to fight that, we came up with a 3-step process. The 3-step process is really simple. And in fact, this is a process that everyone else follows too. You probably follow it, but our emphasis is a little different in terms of how it works. Okay. So first off, we start with the races. Hey, races. Who doesn't love shopping for races? We shop for races like startup entrepreneurs start up for domain names on GoDaddy.com. That's right. We're finding tons of races. People are talking about them right now. It's the fall. Just got an email today about Unbound, a text message as well. People are excited to sign up for races because races mean challenges, races mean training targets, races mean coming together. And when we think about races inside Endurance Nation, we always have a North Star race. What's the key race? The A race, the top race, the prime race. We want to know what that is. Everything else falls around it. So all the things that we're doing this year are targeting toward that event. Really helpful if that A race is a big one, whether it's an attempt at Kona qualification or, I don't know, racing across a continent or doing your first 200-mile ultra race, like something that's just so big you can't not train for it, right? You can't not align around it. Below that, we'll have other races. They could be, if you're doing an Ironman season, these might be 70.3s or Olympic races. These will be races, a half marathon that will sort of be milestones along the way towards your big race. That's great. If you've got a multiple key race season, then we may break your year into 2, and that's a little more complex than I'll be covering today. But the possibility exists out there for sure that we could do that. Some people like to have half a season, like just train and race until June, and then have the other half of the year free. Up to you. Some people do that through June and then try and qualify and then race again at a championship level in the fall. Again, totally up to you and something that we can adjust with for members who are inside the team. But just to get a sense, there's criteria and there are tiers of different races that we follow. Okay. Once we have those races, then we go to blocks. And that's what I'll be covering in the main part of this session today, sort of what the different blocks are and how they orient themselves. We have five different phases here, if you will, in terms of how things work. So you get a sense of what the blocks will be, kind of a sneak peek. But the idea being that every season has a general flow to it. And this is important even just to socialize, because many athletes won't even observe this. They come off a season of racing and their friend says, hey, I'm doing, the Disney challenge, the Goofy challenge in like 4 weeks. And people are like, sign me up. I'm in. I'm so fit. I'm in. And sure, you've got fitness, but doing bigger events like that, or not really thinking about the structure of what a seasonal flow is, means you're not giving your body time to recover. And there's a natural ebb and flow. Just like we have our own process of adaptation, just like when you sit down and you're at an airport and you can hear all the planes, after 10 minutes, you can't hear the planes anymore. Our body works the same way with fitness. We're reacting to the stress, but over time we normalize that stress, we process it, we absorb it, we turn it into strength, and then we come back again for more. But that requires this sort of sine wave curve of the ability to process. And if you're not giving yourself time to process, you're going to be suffering later in the season for sure. Okay. And then the third and final part, I know you're familiar with this as well, is the workouts. Like, people love workouts. What does a week look like? What are the workouts that go on that week? Here's a sample from our winter training program on what workouts look like. But people love workouts. They love getting workouts on apps. They love getting workouts from articles. They love getting workouts on Instagram or TikToks. They love following other people's programs, or meeting a friend and just hopping into something. All of those workout elements live out there. The issue is that those workouts are not tied to a block, which is tied to your race. All of this connects together in this flow, right? So we go from our races to our blocks to our workouts. The daily workouts have to fit inside the blocks, and the blocks fit inside the races. If it doesn't stack up, if it's not one giant Russian doll or whatever you call it, then it's not going to work, because we're not going to be able to put together a successful season if our workouts are disconnected from our training blocks, which are disconnected from our racing and events. And that's where most people lie. They've got a great app that tells them the workout of the day, right? And they've got a race that they want to do in like 7 months. And in between now and then, they have no sense of what workout is the right workout to do now. So most people will outsource it to a coach. They'll say, I'll hire someone and they'll tell me what to do this week. Outsourcing your decision-making is a compromise, right? By not taking charge of your training, you're giving someone else permission to sort of run your operating system, which can be a problem later on in your season when you have to make gut calls long before you call your coach. Because you and I both know there's been times when you probably should have called coach, but didn't. And now you're in a tough spot. It was all just because you didn't call coach, right? And so if you were a better self-coached athlete, if you were more in charge of your season, more in charge of your training, you'd know when to draw that line, because it's not meeting your goals. And that's part of what the block system is, which is to keep you on point for key parts of your season, okay? The difference where we lie here is that most athletes skip the red part. They skip the blocks. They just say, pick a race. Now I just start working out. That's not the way that it is, right? You can't say that you're going to write a book and then just sit down and write 20 minutes a day. Like, without the structure of a book, without the nature of an outline or chapters, it won't make sense to the person who consumes it, right? Just like your season won't make sense to you if you just sit down and work out every single day. Well, probably if you're sitting down, you're not working out, unless you're on one of those super hypey new recumbent bikes and life is good for you. But otherwise, you're going to be in a tough spot, right? Because you're simply not going to be putting in the work that aligns yourself with those races, okay? Now, in the past, people would do annual training plans. I'm guilty of this myself. The annual training plan, like 9, 10, 12 months long, all these workouts, all these categories and components. And the problem with that was, the minute you missed a week, life went wrong, hurt your Achilles, found out that like mom was sick, had to go take care of time with mom, all that stuff. All of a sudden you're like, I just blew up my entire plan. I got to compress this whole block, because that was so granular that every piece was really dependent on the other. And like a string of dominoes, missing one really disrupted the whole flow. That's where our training blocks come in. So these are our 5 training blocks that we have for the season. It's prep. It's prep, transition, depends on what side of the fence you sit on. I think about it as transition, but sometimes I have to refer to it as preparation so people understand that they're preparing. Then there's the out season or winter program, which is a focused wintertime, fast before far, more on that. We have specificity, and the specificity, that's where we actually dial in and get single sport. Right. And then we go to race focus, which is like, okay, now all of our training and work is dedicated towards our distance and the execution of that distance. And then we recover. And sometimes people will go through that process several times, right? They'll do race, recover, race, recover, race, recover, or maybe they'll do race, race, recover. Maybe they just do, race, recover, and peace out. I'm on to the next level, whichever it may be for you. And depending how long your season is, we can go through it. We try to break things up so that the longest block of your season is the winter out season, which is 14 weeks. Other than that, you're moving through these different modalities. And each of these modalities is kind of meant to be a persona. Hey, I'm transitioning. I'm in my transition mindset. I'm emphasizing sleep, flexibility, strength, self-care, all of those things, right? I'm in my winter training program with Endurance Nation. Time for the mental six-pack, pain cave, hard work, lots of rest, minimal swimming, strength training, etc. Well, I'm specificity. I'm a cyclist now. That's it. Who needs run shoes? I hide my run shoes for myself. I take my goggles and I pretend to throw them out for 6 weeks while I focus on becoming the best cyclist I can be. Each of these different personas stack together that give you the physical and mental permission to grow as an athlete by changing your focus enough such that you can really get a lot out of it. What most coaches and programs will do is they'll say, this week your long runs on Saturday and your long bikes on Sunday, but the long swim is on Wednesday. But next week I'm going to shift it around a bit. That long swim is actually on Sunday now. We're going to bike on Saturday and the run will be on Wednesday. And the next week they change. And all of a sudden you're realizing that some of those long runs are like 5 days apart. Some of them are 15 days apart. For your schedule, it's a nightmare because you got to constantly check things, how's it working, etc. That's not how we operate inside Endurance Nation. Our whole job is to make this plan achievable by you. So we make it hard with the main set. I don't make it hard with the schedule for you. All right, here's another visual of that concept so you can see. All right, I don't have a coffee problem. Don't worry about it. So you get a sense of how things work across a year. Not so sure about this color choice, but you get the idea. And the whole point of this model is to help you understand that this is a process we go through every year. So we've engraved this in our athletes, some of whom have been with us for 17 years. They know the whole process. They know about re-entry, the preparation period. They know about the winter, the specificity, race, etc. All of those different pieces are critical parts of the season. So I'll go through them a little bit in detail for you so you get a sense of what they are. Here we are in this prep transition phase. This is where we really do the smart thing and take the time required to absorb the past year and prepare for the next. This is most athletes' least favorite part of the season because they just want to keep training hard. They want to go hard all the time. Your ability to go hard in April, June, July, August is predicated on your ability to rest now. The best part is if you rest properly in this period of time, you can actually see some really good gains. So you need to step back a little bit so we can grow again, but it actually helps you accommodate a lot of the stress that you've had across the year and then set the stage for success later. This is the most important part. When somebody breaks in April for me, like they just can't keep up the training, I can't follow the program, or March or June, I go back and take a look at their training plan and their training log, and more often than not, they just didn't do a transition period. They just went right from a race season, took a week off, and then started going right after it again or right into another race, etc. So don't be that person. Okay? The next phase is our out season program, 14 weeks. For you, if you're not doing the out season, it's still a high quality period of training time. You can use online training platforms like Trainer Road, good partners and friends of ours, or other programs, etc. But the whole point here is we're doing fast before far. We're doing quality before distance. There's no reason why you should be biking longer than 2.5 hours in the winter. Please, for the love of God. And also, you should be doing higher quality work, right? You don't have a long-term stress on your system from higher workouts. You're not doing races. There's no disruption in your schedule. You're on a fixed window because of the winter and the temperature, etc. So we do that. We lean into those constraints. In fact, we amplify them by usually removing swim as much as possible, making Monday and Friday ideally rest days, although people will sometimes add swims or strength or cross training, etc. Highest quality time. There's more information at endurancenation.us on that program. The specificity block, this is my favorite block. This is when people get to kind of role play a little bit. And usually it's cycling or running, but there could be, paddling or hiking, depending what your goal is. But the whole point of this is to get really single sport focused. One of the reasons why we are unable to evolve as endurance athletes who are multi-sport athletes is that we just have 3 different modalities. So we're juggling all of them and they have fatigue and they stack up against one another. Our ability to ride bikes hard on Tuesday and Thursday is compromised because we're running on Wednesday when cyclists wouldn't run on Wednesday also, right? So we try and give ourselves a little bit of room to grow by changing the training stress structure and also by amplifying the type of work we're doing. Inside the winter, we're doing work at our threshold and VO2 levels to kind of raise those numbers, raise our 5 and 20-minute numbers on the bike, raise our 5K time, or rather reduce our 5K time, raise our VDOT, lower the 5K time for the run. When we get to the specificity phase, in that case, we're trying to spend more time at threshold and more time just sub-threshold. So instead of trying to get your 20-minute power up, we're trying to get your 60 to 90-minute power up by having you spend sustained time at 88 to 92% of your functional threshold on the bike, for example, and then having you spend time at just below half marathon pace for the run. And so we're extending that time. So we've made you strong. And while normally there's sort of a curve and a drop off, we're trying to push that curve out more by having you spend more time here. So not at that peak level. We just did that. We're going to change that stress a little bit. Later on, we're going to be doing all that sort of zone 1, zone 2 work with your race specificity that comes in later. But by the time we get there, you're starting off, your zone 2 is now 19 miles an hour instead of 16 and a half miles an hour like it was last year, because you just made you that much stronger. Okay. All right, great. The next one is our race prep. Now we have a 4-week mini block as a bridge, and then a 12-week larger block. So it could be 16 weeks. I know I said we didn't have any longer programs, but these are mini blocks. If you need to do the 4-week block, then really what it is kind of a ladder up to get you from the baseline level of work you've been doing to prepare you for the volume of the full plan. There's nothing worse than watching a nice athlete, high ambitions, high goals, right, all aligned, just run headfirst into a brick wall that is a full Ironman training plan that's like got 16 hours of training in it on week 1. And they just fall apart, right? They can only fake the funk for so long. And so we use that 4-week as a bridge. But in this case, the race prep inside Endurance Station is hard because of the combination of different training modalities for you. And we try and do variety regardless of your sport of choice. It's not just the total duration, because workouts get closer, right? If you're doing back-to-back 5-hour rides, there's only 24 hours in a day, only a good time to do a bike ride. All of a sudden, you're kind of like, I finished that bike ride at 2, but I'm starting this next bike ride at like 6 a.m. the next day. It's not a lot of rest between those 2 periods. You're not even getting 24 hours. You're getting 2/3 of 24 hours, only 16 hours. It's kind of tough. So what happens is this is hard simply because of the volume you're doing. And we spend the majority of our time not just getting used to the volume, our positional and sort of skill-based fitness, but also we do a lot of work around race execution now, which is the mental side of it, making sure that you're pacing properly. We do benchmark workouts, we do over distance workouts, we do race simulations. We're working on your nutrition plan. There's a lot to do in this period that's not really very fitness related. Your job is really to kind of go that way really steadily and not slow down. And we have to do that at the right pace. We have to fuel that. We have to come up with a strategy for the obstacles that come in your way and the terrain and the conditions, etc. So a large part of our race prep is actually around that race execution. And again, go to enduranceStation.us. You can see a whole section on the 4 keys of race execution. You can take our free course on that. So last piece after racing is recovery. And again, a lot of athletes are not good at this. In general, our approach is to have you recover really hard right after a race. And then come out of it. So typically speaking, it's sort of like 3 times the time that your race took, right? So as an example, if you did an Ironman and it took 12 hours, then we're looking at like 36 hours starting the next day, not right after the race. Knock it off, okay? 36 hours of hard rest, right? Probably 48 hours. If your race took you like 5 hours, we're looking at 15 hours. We're looking at like half a full day or a full day. In that case, I probably would go like 2 days of just hard rest. Always more rest is better. I can always fix rested. What I can't fix is ignored the need to rest, and now I'm injured. Don't have an Endurance Station time machine just yet. Still trying to save up the budget for that. And so what we're trying to do here is really focus. So it's hard rest and then slow re-entry into training, starting with non-weight bearing exercises, swimming, ellipticals, okay, a little bit of cycling, hopefully not on a race bike if you raced a bike, and then eventually into some hiking, etc. But for most people, especially if you've run half marathon, you won't really run again for 7 days. If you've run a marathon or longer, we won't really run for 2 weeks. You don't need to, right? Your body needs to recover and get restored. And there's a lot that goes into healing those muscle tissues, especially depending on how hard you actually want on race day. And then coming out of that 2-week period, we kind of re-enter, right? So we can get back into season. And if you're mid-season, you can often go from recovery right back to racing again. In fact, that second weekend, if you're doing back-to-back Ironman races, typically has a long workout in it. Again, we'll adjust that for you, but you get the general sense. We want to be safe and smart here, but not going too hard. Okay. Here is a sample slide of what it looks like inside Endurance Station for Lake Placid. So just a quick sense, you can kind of zoom in here, and let me remove myself so I can see if I can make it bigger. I can bigify myself here. That does not do it. Okay, I tried. All right, so what that means is you can see out season here starting in November. We've got 2 weeks of this recovery, which is usually swim camp, our bike focus block with a week of recovery, race prep right into the full bike plan. So that's a 16-week block right there. There's a natural break after the plan and start of the plan. Another recovery into transition with 2 durability periods. Durability, which I didn't mention, is part of that transition, which is sort of baseline consistent work, no high volume, no high intensity, just laying a good foundation. And so what you'll notice here at the bottom, this is a person who's like an accountant. They got lots of work here in that March-April timeframe, and then vacation planned here as well. So you'll get this visual when you get a roadmap. It'll also have blocks below in terms of how things look. In fact, if you give me a second here, I will let me pull up what the out season looks like for you. Hold on a second. Hmm. Doesn't look like I have it pulled up right now, but I'll tell you this, and I'll share it with you if you happen to sign up for this. Um, that it basically below this block, you've got a small window for each of these different phases of the season. It tells you how many days, which days are for rest, which days are for which sport modality, and you'll get a video associated with it. It's me walking through your season, so you have that full thing. And then on the back, there's information about each section generically, and then a space for you to watch a video about sort of what bike focus means, for example, or what race prep means. So you can, again, be completely in charge. So if you're not even using an indoor station, you can still say, oh, I'm in my full bike. What are all the pieces or components of a full bike that are important? I can still learn of that and then go use an app or use a coach or use a book or whatever it is you want. So you get to know all the support and resources that you need to be successful there. Okay. Let's take a look at what this is like in the out season, little out season treadmill action. It's too sunny to be the out season there. I'm not going to lie. So when we think about what training looks like, we start thinking about weeks. So here's an example of an out season week. So we've got rest days on Monday, Friday, work days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we have the extra days on the weekend in terms of like a little bit longer work, and then bonus days. Like what are the extra sessions you're looking at to work on this year? Do you want to add strength in from Monday, Friday? Do you want to add swim in? Is there another sport that you're interested in, winter training, for example, and so on? Typically, for people who can complete a full out season, they're doing the Tuesday through Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Some people will drop Saturday, Sunday for some weekends and replace that with cross country skiing or skate skiing or Nordic skiing or whatever it is. All fine. Tuesday through Thursday can be enough if we do it right. It's still the most important part of our season for you. Here's a visual of the week so you can just get a sense. Bikes Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, runs, quality runs on Wednesday and Sunday, and then shorter runs on Tuesday and Friday. Opportunities, if you wanted to, on Friday and Monday to add in some other training as well. More often than not, we'll even take this out and have this be a rest day as well. Sometimes adding a second shorter run here. You'll see a lot of 1 mile or 2 mile brick runs, just practicing the run skill, building that resiliency, but not doing a run as in a run workout to kind of blow out the season and so on. Now, another reason why having a block set up for your season is important because it does allow you to plan for pitfalls and get over things. So lots of things go wrong, and there's sort of three generic types. One is time off. You're injured or you're sick. We got some guidance here on how you want to handle things. Generally speaking, because of your season, we don't really get worried about injury or illness unless we're in that race prep phase. Otherwise, it's just par for the course. And if you miss part of your block, we can either adjust the goals for that short block and go forward. It doesn't affect your whole season because that block is your insurance policy against bleeding into other areas. So you can have a great winter, and then maybe you mess up the recovery period, or you have a great winter, but you mess up the specificity period. We can adjust accordingly because we'll just sort of grade the quality of that block and then make a decision point for you. All right. Sometimes we have issues with travel, whether it's work travel, like just you're constantly traveling at a certain period of time of year, or just all year. God bless you if you are, or if you've got family travel, like vacation or whatever it is. Generally speaking, we tell people just go straight to the run. Do not try and find places to swim or places to ride a bike or place to find a studio. Generally speaking, logistics are too hard, but you can always bring a pair of run shoes, or you can go walking on a treadmill if it's dangerous or dark outside or cold. You can do a fair amount of damage in a gym with some weights and do some cardio circuits, resources that we have for you inside the team. We just try and keep you consistent. All we're trying to do in this period of time is to keep you on track. For those of you doing like a race with running in it or long running, we may have you still do your long run, but otherwise it's just gravy workouts. Remember, being away from a normal environment is stressful. You had to travel to get there. Adding in extra workouts or hard workouts can often be what tips you over to making poor decisions. At the very least, for those of you who enjoy client dinners and so on, we're trying to mitigate the caloric damage of what your clients are making you eat and drink. And then finally, events. These are also pitfalls because even though we've told you everything we've told you today, some people will still go out and do crazy events. I myself, I'm guilty of crazy events. Events are fun. So generally speaking, if it's a short event, you can just replace what's going on in your weekend and with the fun event. Just take out the Sunday workout, put in the Sunday race, done, easy. If it's a moderate event, if it's a little more than an hour, we might actually take the day before a little easier. So if you had a hard bike with a short run planned and then like a 10-mile run on Sunday, but you want to do a half marathon on Sunday, probably would take that bike and we would do it for time, but keep it zone 1, zone 2. So still stay loose, do the thing, check the box on the bike, but then go into that race. The difference becomes when that event actually ends up being like 3 hours or longer. In that case, now it's a real deal. We actually do want to taper. We'll probably cut things off on Thursday, or Thursday mornings. We kind of get 3-ish days, for example, of work. So Thursday mostly rest, Friday rest, Saturday rest, Sunday race. or if it's a Saturday event, maybe we'll change up the week a little bit as well. But again, what this allows you to do is with the mindset of that particular block, you can now say, oh, my specificity block, my goal is to bike. So if you know you're doing a running race on this weekend, I need to move my bikes forward, right? If I'm in the winter and my modality is high quality, then I want to keep my Tuesday to Thursday intact or keep those sessions, I can flex on the rest. If I'm in race prep and I'm doing these bridge workouts on the volume, then the volume is the most important. I know to prioritize my weekend. So each part of the season gives you the information you need to make the right decisions to keep yourself on track as you go forward. I always have a couple key questions. I'll answer these 3 ones here, but if you want to follow up with me when you get this, you can always go ahead and email me, ask me questions. So when do I start training for my A race? That's the number one I get already. I don't care when your A race is. You should start in November if your A race is before June or before July. You should start in January if your A race is July or later. Because the out season, you need a full year of training. You need consistency. As an age grouper, the amount of time you can spend training is so reduced that the longer you can train, the more consistently you can train, the better off you're going to be. You get more serious the closer the race gets, and you have to spend more time inside that block. And again, it's physically and mentally demanding in the race prep. But if you wait until that period of time to start training, you're going through all these adaptations, learning about your nutrition, learning about your needs for recovery. Your body's reeling from all this training load. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And I've seen it unfold for 17 years. Please don't do it yourself. All right. What's the most important phase inside Endurance Nation? The most important phase is the out season. Those 14 weeks. Athletes who do the out season and the rest of the year versus athletes who don't do the out season but do the rest of the year, the difference is palpable. There's a strength and a resilience that comes from the out season that sets athletes apart. We see it year after year inside Endurance Nation. We see it on the race line when we see people who are competing. The only folks who have an advantage over a full season athlete when it comes to a long race is someone who's been doing those races for years and has a system and a process and kind of knows what they're doing. Otherwise, the out season is a great way to revamp your training, get connected to other athletes, build critical fitness, and get excited about your year in a way that doesn't bring any fatigue with it, but all the strength. What about my other 16 races? I had to put it in there. I wanted to go like 72 races. I was just kind of being a little facetious there. Yes, there's 2 types of people here, right? So some people race to get fit. If that's your life, because the only way you can get out to do stuff is if there are events, and we've all been there at times, then we would plan races as those milestone key sessions for you and do that accordingly. That's more custom and that's more inside the team. But you can do it. If you're someone who's got that North Star, but you just love racing, can't help yourself, may the force be with you. Like that's fine if you want to be social and do those things. Just make sure that every time you're racing that you're resting. That's all I'm saying. And I don't mean a post-race beer or ice cream and then get back to work the next day. If you're doing hard racing, give yourself a break. It just adds up over time. Racing is fun. It's social. But if you want to stay true to that North Star goal, then you have to make sure that you're absorbing that work from the races, right? And at the very least, if not just the work, then at least absorb the lessons learned, like about pacing, nutrition, strategy, etc. A lot of racing does give you the opportunity to test yourself and test your strategy. And it's a great opportunity to see what gaps do I have and how can I fix them. Okay, amazing. All right, well, the team is ready and rocking and ready to go. This is from Mont Tremblant. Fantastic race and best mascot for an Ironman ever. If you want to learn more, we've got a couple things for you. We've got our roadmap. I'll include this in the email for those of you who sign up to see the recording. We have the out season. For those of you not on the team, you can go there and actually purchase the out season as a block. And of course, at a very, very low price right now. And then of course, we have our out season, our Endurance Nation, all of our resources are there as well. So if you're interested in race execution, interested in the habit manual, want to get our newsletter, all those pieces, those also exist there. Okay. I hope this is helpful for you. In addition to this, for those of you who are here, I'm going to send a link along to not just only get your roadmap, but give you a discount as well. The first 25 people, I'm giving $150 off of the roadmap. So if you want to get it for just $99, you can do that with the email and the code. After 25 people, the code just stops working, but it is your chance to come in and see what it is. If you've got questions about this process, you want to talk to me, go to the website on EnduranceNation.us, use the chat bubble. You can also follow us on social media. I'm pretty active on Twitter, where we're at TeamEN on Twitter. You can also DM me on Instagram or Facebook. It'll find its way to me, and I'll be happy to help you out. Okay? Thanks so much. I hope you've really thought long and hard about your season. I hope you're excited, regardless of the workout or the coaching or training support you have, that you understand now that actually designing a season can be really helpful and informative in setting yourself up for success. I've shown you an Ironman template today, but we also have templates here for half Ironman races, for gravel races, for ultra races, for marathons and so on, all the different things that people want to do. We've got templates and we'll customize them for you when we go through the process. I hope to see you inside a roadmap call soon. Until then, be safe, be healthy, and I'll talk to you later.